In this video, we're talking about how the crime labs actually calibrate their gas chromatography machine. So that's the machine that they run the blood samples through. And it's not as simple when you get a blood result. It's not as simple as a machine just spitting out a number and you taking a look at the number like you would a receipt and saying, that's my number. There's a lot more that goes into it. And so today we're going to look at the general kind of framework on how they actually calibrate the machine, because it does need to be calibrated. They need to constantly monitor these things. They need to maintain them. Sometimes they're doing maintenance. They're pulling them out of service and in service, and so they need to be calibrated, and this is how they do it. So what I have here is a packet from the Phoenix Crime Lab. It's the Phoenix Police Department Lab Services Bureau. You can see here it says alcohol face sheet. And what you see at the beginning here is the cover sheet. It's telling you the different samples that they're going to use to calibrate the machine. So the machine doesn't know what it's measuring or what it's calibrating or what it's recording until they train it to do so. They're going to do that, or claim to do that, by using these different samples. So you can see here we have a different calibrator. So these are the different controls, and the different amounts of these samples have different amounts of ethanol or the alcohol that they're testing. So this one has a 0.025, this one has a 0.4. We've got other controls and other different things. They're going to run each one of these samples through the machine, and they're going to tell the machine, this is a 0.4, this is a 0.025, this is a 0.1. And when the machine knows that, then it's going to be able to calculate the other unknown stuff that comes through it. The machine's going to say, okay, I know what a 0.4 looks like, I know what a 0.1 looks like, and so it's going to be able to calculate what other samples that it doesn't know. It's going to be able to put them in that framework. And so you have these different calibrators and controls created by these different manufacturers. So these are other people outside of the crime lab who are actually justifying, and they're saying, we have done our own measurements and we know that what we're providing you has a 0.050 or 0.10 to some certain level of certainty. We know it's within this margin of error, it's got that amount. So that's the face sheet. Then what you do, the crime lab is going to take each one of those samples and they'll run it through the machine. It's going to run through the machine, it's going to come out the other end, and then the criminalist or the lab techs will say, okay, what just came out was a 0.4 or a 0.2 or whatever the sample was. And so what they're looking for are they're these graphs, and they look like this. And so what you're really doing is you're analyzing the peaks here. So when a sample comes out, so say here we had the 0.4 calibrator, okay, it's a high level of ethanol. It's going to come out, it's going to hit these peaks, and you're going to see them on these two different graphs. So this is time, and then this is the amount of area is what we're looking for. And so this is the level of the peak, and what we're doing is we're measuring the area within these peaks. So these numbers here, you see the peak area, the actual area. You can cut this out with a pair of scissors and you measure that area. That's what we're measuring, the peak area. Because what happens is that ethanol will go through the coils, it'll come out the other end, it'll hit a flame, that flame will light up because ethanol is flammable, and then based on the amount of that flame, it's going to spit out a number. And that's generally how it works. So then you'll have these peak areas, and you can see that they're different. So here we had a 0.198 and a 116, 201, 115. This was a much lower calibrator. So this is a 0.025, and this was a 12, 117, 12, 117, versus these two numbers, which are obviously significantly higher, the 198, 116, 201, 115. And so what they're doing is, like I said, they're running through each one of those, putting each one of those samples through the machine, and you're going to get a series of these different graphs, okay? Then at the end, they're going to take all of them, once they know them all, and they're going to plot them on a chart that looks like this. It's the calibration curve, we call it. And so they're going to take each one of these different samples, and they're going to say the ethanol area and the N-propanol area are these two numbers, and they're going to create a ratio, and the machine is basically going to do some calculations, the formula's here, and they're going to then spit out a number. So here we see that the machine is calculating the amount of ethanol in a 0.025 at a 0.0251. Okay, so it's not exactly, it's a little bit higher. For the 0.40, it's a 0.4014. Some of them are right on, some of them are off a little bit. But what we're doing here is, now that the machine knows each one of these samples, we program the machine to say we know what it is, it will create this curve, this line here, so that when they run a sample that they don't know what it is, they can plot it on that curve. They can then say, okay, we didn't know what this was, but based on the amount of area, based on these other known values, based on the area of the stuff that we know, we can then say that we know what the unknown sample is. We can plot it on here based on the amount of area that it has, and then they can determine what your blood alcohol content was. So it is a little bit more complicated than that. This is what we're looking for. We're looking through these documents, we're looking through these graphs to find areas where they may have missed something or screwed something up. People often will say, well, do they really do that? Do the crime labs really have oversights? Do they do things like that? Well, they do actually. So at the very front, on the front sheet that I showed you at the beginning of the video, they say here under these comments, due to an oversight in the sequence file, results in vial positions 96 to 98 do not agree with the sample ID. As a result, subject samples do not have the required bracketing controls to be reported on this batch. They're going to repipette them. We're going to reanalyze them on the next batch. So the person who did this, who ran this, actually screwed something up, and they acknowledge it. They make a note of it on the comment section of the face sheet. That gives an attorney immediate inclination that they need to go dive into that a little bit further, or maybe interview the criminalist about it. And sometimes they don't report those things. So then what we're looking for, I'll make another video about it, is we're looking for problems actually reviewing these different graphs. We're looking at some peak shaving. We're looking at some adjustments of this baseline. We're looking for things that will, it's basically called a tail, so this won't be up and down. It'll be something that elutes a lot longer than that. The back end of the tail will be further, and then that provides us evidence. There may be contamination, there may be something co-eluting. There's a lot of many different possibilities on what could be problematic with the run. Generally not something that you're going to be able to do on your own. This is just a very basic, very low level overview on how this all works. There are books this thick that we refer to that detail all this stuff and how it works and what issues to identify and those types of things. But that is how it works. If you get a number, if you've been charged with DUI and you get a number, recognize there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of legal arguments that we have about this as well. Who actually manufactured these? What's their level of certainty on these calibrators and these controls? Are there problems with how they came up with that? And what's the actual margin of error on these things? Can we get them to agree that their level of certainty is actually not as scientifically accurate as they say it is? We can talk more about that. If you have been charged with DUI, you want to speak about your case specifically, feel free to give our office a call. We offer free case evaluations. We're happy to speak with you. Thanks for watching.